my name is Jenna and today I'm going to be doing a book review. The book I will be reviewing is The Drop-Off by Fiona Harris and Mike McLeish. This is a new book that is coming out, I believe it comes out either today or very early May. I was contacted by the authors and asked if I would like to do a review on this one on my channel, and I immediately said yes once I learned a little bit more about the premise of the book, which is quite amusing because I have to admit what I thought this book was about and what this book was actually about are two very different things, but that actually ended up working out in the book's favor. So The Drop-Off is actually a web series that was created by the same people who wrote the book, and this book is sort of a adaptation continuation of that series. I must admit, after I finished reading the book, I then went and watched the web series and it was hilarious. It was actually so good, but I would actually recommend reading the book first rather than watching the series first, as I was then able to, while I was watching the series, I really felt like I knew all of the characters and I got to see little hints of what I'd seen in the book, and it was such a fun time. So this is going to be a spoiler-free review, so you can watch the entirety of this video without fear of being spoiled. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the premise of The Drop-Off. So The Drop-Off follows three parents, Lizzie, Megan and Sam. Lizzie is a part-time midwife who has a few secrets that she hasn't really let anyone know. Megan is a single parent who is running a sort of a kids fashion empire, and Sam is a stay-at-home dad whose wife is flying all over the country for her work. So these three friends always meet at the drop-off when they're dropping their kids off at school, and they take it in turns to bring coffee, and then something happens which sort of threatens to tear their community apart. Their lollipop man ends up dead, and this starts a scandal which does threaten to break everything and to change everything that they know. So that was the premise that I was told when I was approached to review this book, and while a lot of that was true, I'm not sure if I was led to believe this or if this is just where my mind went, but I thought that the lollipop man had been murdered and that the scandal that was threatening to rip them apart was they had to sort of figure out who the murderer was. It's nothing like that. There's no murder in this book, but the lollipop man, his name is Frank, he does die, and this does sort of start the ball rolling. Megan, Lizzie and Sam do start to question everything they've known, and they really do start to look within and within their own community to sort of figure out how they're going to move forward. So overall, I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. The book itself was hilarious. It was so Aussie, it's not funny. There were so many moments that I just felt like I really understood these characters, and a lot of moments as well where Lizzie in particular, so Lizzie has 4 children, and there were multiple times when she'd be thinking about one of her kids, and I'm just looking at her and reading and going, I can see my mum having thought this exact thing about me when I was younger. So it really brought a sense of realism in that aspect, and that's something that I absolutely loved. So going on with the writing style, this book was written by 2 authors, but I couldn't figure out who wrote which part, which usually is a really good thing because it means that the authors' voices have gelled so well together that it's sort of hard to distinguish them. So each of our main characters is a point of view character. So we have Lizzie, whose chapters are written in first person. We have Megan, whose chapters are written in third person. And then we have Sam, whose chapters are completely written in emails that he is writing to a friend. This for me was a really different way of having a novel written. I'd never sort of come across this before, but I found that I really liked it because especially towards the end of the novel, we do start to have less of the characters' names on the top of the chapter, and I was just relying on the fact that I knew if we're in first person, Lizzie's speaking, if we're in third person, Megan's speaking, and then if we're written in email or text form, it's probably going to be Sam. So this was a really different way of writing, but it's something that I really liked because we really got to see each of these characters through the way their chapters were written, and for me it really helped to sort of understand a lot about who these people were just by choosing the point of view. World building is always really difficult in a contemporary novel because this, I would say this would classify as contemporary, probably adult contemporary though, which is something I've never read before and surprisingly really enjoyed. I ended up reading this book in one sitting, which I wasn't expecting, but once I started this book I actually found that I couldn't put it down. It just sort of sucked me in and it was really engaging and just so much fun to read. World building of course is sort of difficult to do in contemporary novels because you're not so much creating a new world, you're just creating a world of these characters. And being Australian and having been to an Australian primary school, I can say that the authors nailed this. They nailed that world building. It was, I mean obviously when I was in primary school I was a kid, but seeing those kids in that environment and just knowing what I know about the primary school environment now, it was so well done. and I found myself just losing it at the most random times, but it just made perfect sense to my little Australian brain. So good. Talking about the characters though, I really ended up liking Megan. I loved Megan's storyline and I thought she was so funny. Then when I was watching the web series though, it's really funny because I pictured Megan completely different. So Lizzie, I pretty much pictured her how she was in the web series. Megan though was someone completely different, and I ended up loving the book version of her slightly more than the web series version. I felt like book Megan was much more complicated and she had a lot more that she had to deal with. I loved all of the kids though. The children were amazing. They all had their own little quirks. They weren't on the page very long, but whenever they were, they really drew your eye to them because they just had their own presence, and so much of it, I'm just sitting there going, this was me as a child, and I can see why it was so infuriating for the parents. So it was really eye-opener for me as well to get to see myself in these kids, and then now being so much older going, oh, I can see why I was so annoying. So I thought that was a lot of fun and it was really, really well done. I also really liked the journey that all the characters went on to go from the beginning of the book to the end. They all definitely grew and they worked through all of their issues, and all of this of course stems from this one trauma that happened to everybody, which brings me on to the plot. As I said before, the plot was something completely different than what I was expecting. I didn't really know what I was expecting going into the book, but by the end of it I realized it was just a lot of fun. It's basically just these three parents who are having to go through the ups and downs of life and really come to terms with things that they would rather keep hidden. When I was reading this book, I got, it's kind of random, but I got some serious Big Little Lies vibes, just without the murder and more Australian. The idea of these really tight-knit parents really helping each other and working with each other, it just, that is the vibe the book gave me, and I am so here for it. So all in all, I give this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was a fantastic read, especially if you are Australian and you went to a public primary school. This book is set in Melbourne, which obviously I don't live in Melbourne, but I was able to recognize enough of what was going on to really get the gist. But if you went to an Australian primary school and you are now sort of in your out of high school years, I would highly recommend this one because it is a lot of fun. It's so, I don't know how you would describe it, but I was hooked from beginning to end. I really couldn't stop. And then once you have read this book, you need to go and watch the web series. I will leave a link to that series in the description box below. It's so funny. My mum came in while I was watching one of the episodes. She had no context for anything that was going on and she was losing it. I think it's just one of those things where you're sort of looking at it and you're going, I relate to everything that's happening on screen right now, and that is exactly what they have managed to portray in this book. It's amazing. Highly recommend you pick this one up. And there you go, that was my review of The Drop-Off. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comment section below if you will be picking this book up and what you thought of it once you have, because I would absolutely love to know. If you like this video, be sure to give it a huge thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing. Stay random. Bye.